don't know if anyone wants to do anything for entertainment purposes, but I have a guitar, I can play that, but my routine the last like 5 days has been SketchUp model and then 5 minutes of guitar, SketchUp model, 5 minutes of guitar.
Nice.
It's a nice routine.
A very interesting one.
And eventually I eat something.
Johnny, how come a bike can't stand up on its own?
Because it's too tired. Paul, I've been using your when in doubt, put a roundabout quote like a lot. So I quote you every time, and so I'm trying to get it out there.
Well, I also said instead of thinking outside the box, you need to think outside the car.
Yeah. Okay, that's another one. I'll start saying that too.
Crazy stuff.
We'll wait a minute more, and then we'll get started, Alex.
Oh, on a side note, I'll be rooting for Rutgers, and somebody, I think she will join you guys this fall. She will join Rutgers because this person, I don't know her. She wrote to me via LinkedIn, and then she was like, I'm thinking to either go to New York University or Rutgers University. Like, what do you think? And I gave her my feedback on both the schools. And then she was like, well, okay, then I'll be joining Rutgers School this fall. Thank you for your info.
Nice.
Awesome. Thanks, Z.
Sure.
We won't tell NYU though. Thanks.
Nobody's here. I'm in safe hands, I know.
Well, thanks. All right, so it's 12:03. Alex, I will hand it off to you, and just a quick announcement, this will be recorded. So if you don't want to be seen, as much as we'd love to see you, just make sure that you close your camera off. And we thank you for your cooperation. All right.
All right, cool. Thank you, Johnny. All right, hello everyone. Welcome to session 3. EJB Designs welcomes you to draw with us today on Rutgers Day virtually. If you don't know us, this is wake up. There we go. This is our e-board. We have Jasmine Grossman as our president. We have myself as vice president. Julio Mora is our treasurer. Johnny Malpica is the director of communications. And then Justin Alexander is our secretary. And our faculty advisors are Professor Juan Ayala and Professor Paul Drake. So a little bit overview of our mission for EJB Designs. EJB Design stands for the Edward J. Bloustein drawing to educate students in innovative graphic negotiation skills. And the purpose of EJB Designs is to facilitate discussion, practice, and innovation in the graphic conveyance of planning ideas, recognizing that intuitive drawing skills improve a planner's ability to design the physical environment. We seek to demonstrate the benefits of sketching first and then using computer programs second. Using this philosophy, we are exploring and sharing graphic rendering techniques that complement the urban planning and design thought process. So today's overview has been, earlier today, we had Professor Nelson talk about hand drawing with the sketchbook. Session 2 was with Professor Barbara Fago, was talking about from sketches to digital graphics. And then today right now we'll have session 3 with Professor Juan Ayala talking about today's digital tools. If you did miss session 1 and 2, you'll be able to see these sessions maybe on YouTube or Vimeo whenever we get a chance to post them. And then all you need today is just some drawing tools such as pens, pencils, paper, and Miro. And also don't forget about our raffle because we have some awesome prizes. So I'll stop sharing my screen and have Professor Ayala share his screen in the presentation.
Thank you, Alex. Can everyone see the screen?
You're all good.
Oh, good. All right. So welcome, everybody. Thank you for having me. My name is Juan Ayala. I am a professor of practice here at the Edward J. Bloustein School of Planning and Public Policy. Today, what we're going to be talking about are digital tools in relationship to the sketchbook. So we focused on the urban design sketchbook specifically. We're not talking about sketchbooks for artists or landscape architects or planners or architects. We're looking at urban design specifically for a reason. So as you know, technology has changed quite a bit of things. And for those of, many of you are too young to remember, but in the last 30 years, since technology has come into the office, and as Barbara showed very well in her session today, technology has changed the way in which we think now as urban planners. And that has had a significant impact on urban design, because urban design just so happened to come out as a formal profession right around the same time that the computer programs and graphics started to pick up in the early to mid 90s. So what we have found was that over the last 30 years is that sketching has had a profound impact on the way we think and the way in which we approach urban planning. Sketching is what has made many urban planners into urban designers. And so with technology advancing, what we need to be careful of is not falling on the waysides of letting technology lead us. In fact, what we should be doing is looking for ways in which technology could enhance our sketching abilities, because sketching has had a very close connection to the things around us as well as the things that we see and communicate. So early today, let me put this on presentation. Early today, what you've seen, what you heard from Professor Nellison, he spoke about his experience using sketching in the profession. And he showed you how sketching is helping him stir ideas in others, right? And in that process, his sketches has helped them think about things that they've never considered before. So in fact, what he's been doing was driving a conversation while narrating a story. And as you can see in the animation in front of you, sketching can evolve an idea, and it can be done with more than one person, even though one might be driving the sketches. Then Barbara presented a very interesting period in our history as far as urban planning and design, when computers started to help us draw. That was something that we thought would be a game changer, and we saw a lot of hope, and we got really connected with the computer. I can't say it made things quicker, that's for sure. I think it was very bulky and heavy, and it kind of slowed us down, to be quite honest. But the idea of having this crude graphic in your computer, and that you can manipulate it to do several things, is what really made it intriguing. And we got caught up on it, some of us more than others. And we had people just throw away all the drafting tables and said, we're not going to do this for the next century, because now we have computers. And that was a huge mistake. Many other companies did keep them, and those survived very well. So the part that Barbara was showing is how the graphics interrupted this dialogue that their company wanted to have with the community at large in their community engagement event. And so what the graphics did, like in music back in around that same period, it strips away the essence of the message, right? The message in the graphic, in the sketch, was pretty much taken away, because now what we were looking at were straight lines, like the ones you see there in the screen, without any life to them. And that really killed the message. And therefore, the focus was interrupted as well. And so how do you talk to people now about urban planning and design? But here's the crazy thing that really bogs me today, is that students and young professionals, they desperately seek to find a program that will do almost everything for them. And that's what this session is about today, is how sketching is so important to just the fundamentals of what we do, that to find a program that will do it all for you is the biggest mistake you can ever make in your life when it comes to your profession. So in this case, what you see up in front of you, there are just too many mistakes that have been presented. And it's not because of the operator's mistakes or errors, it's the program itself. And you could, we can play the game, find the errors, right? But the misleading information, the scale for one, the bold graphics, the very cold graphics, the color scheme, and more. There's some planning issues that are just wrong here. But because the operator was just removed from telling a story, he or she did not take into consideration what the impact of their design here is actually doing and presenting. And so what this does, if it tells us that if you don't know how urban environments come together and how they work, then you should not be operating a program, because the operation of the program, similarly to the way you operate a pencil to sketch, has to be well engaged into the conversation with others as well as yourself, because graphic communication, visual communication, sketching has always been about communicating to others as well as to yourself. What you draw is what you see, is what you react to, right? So you have to ask yourself, what do you want to be? Do you want to be the operator, or do you want to be the narrator, or both? In this case, you can see clearly that the operator is totally removed from the narrative as to how to fix this, the problems within that street at the bottom there. So let's look at a sketchbook and see, how that could become a better way of, how that could be something that helps you communicate better. And how do we use digital tools to help you sketch? So before computers, the sketchbook played a significant role in individuals' professional growth. And the sketching was a means to gain knowledge, not just a skill in sketching. That's really not what the sketchbook was about. Sketching actually helped us understand how sometimes things come together. And so you had a sketch in planning and urban design was more about an illustrative note. It had diagrams, it had writings on it. It communicated back to you depth, shadows, lights, all of these things, texture that could bring you back to that place that you sat there and watched and observed and spent quite a bit of time on. So sketching allowed us to make this personal connection with the places that we drew. And so it made us spend quite a bit more time in a place, which is good. There's just too many professionals out there that are in a rush to go from one place to the next. They want to know all kinds of things, but they don't want to really spend the quality time trying to learn those things. And so sketching is one of those things that allows you to have the excuse of sitting in a park bench, along a sidewalk, within a public space, and just observe, feel the environment, take it all in, and then become analytical. So we don't draw pictures of just landscapes and rich architecture. It's this visual connection of the individual and the environment that the sketchbook was really about. So sketching is just one of the tools that we use, by the way. We also create models. We analyze on the computer. We create tables and charts. We manipulate numbers. The idea of making is what we have not put into our minds, right? As professionals. And so if you really think about what urban planning and design is, it's about making. And if you can if you can think about it and you can produce it on a sketch, then that thought will always be out there and it will not be interrupted. But if you don't, if you don't get yourself used to thinking and making, then it's just going to be all in your head, right? So drawing takes us on a different meaning with different professionals. So just to give you a quick example, for an artist, a drawing is just simply a form of expression, right? And this expression is a feeling or a reaction or some kind of instance that you freeze in time. But urban planning is a series of sketches that carry your thoughts. Sometimes they are stored in the most minimal sets of lines. And so your sketchbook is a way of reflecting back to that moment in time where you first drew, and gets those thoughts coming back to you on what you've done. And so if we were to develop drawing tools to sketch, they should not interfere with this thought process that's very engaging. And so at the Bloustein School, what we have found were programs that programs isolated us from the realities of design thinking. And therefore, what we did was we refined this list of programs using the highest potential of the program, so that we could use it in the form of sketch before we start to solidify an actual final design. So in this final segment, what we want to do is focus you on the impact of programs and how they have affected the thinking process. And I want to show you that there are several programs out there that have an impact on the different types of sketches that we do. And so what I'm going to take you through is a series of drawings, starting with the hand sketch, different types of urban planning and design drawings that we do. And from that hand sketch, how things can be enhanced using other digital programs and tools. So we've practiced the art of the markers on trace, which is one of the graphics that EJB Designs actually was founded upon. And this is an ortho-projected site plan. We drafted by hand all of the different areas in this parcel. But what's great about it is that it's not driven by a computer, it's not driven by the laws of the computer program, which is that a line will be completely parallel, perpendicular to others, right? As we sketch, the great thing about sketching is that we're not paying attention to that. We're not restricted by snaps or objects that are in the drawing, and it has a little bit more of a dynamic flair to it. If you start to practice the illustrative site plan sketch, which includes landscaping and how that landscaping does affect space, then you could start to think about ways of incorporating digital tools to match the graphics that you're trying to create. And so now this could have been an export from AutoCAD. All of the individual buildings that you see there were actually hand drawn, but the background is an AutoCAD base map that is very accurate to the topography and the space around it. So AutoCAD with hand drawing sketching. Now in Photoshop, you can use the sketching program to allow you to create a set of layers of information that you can easily talk to several people on the team, but also to your client and maybe even to developers who might be putting this together. But it allows us to also, in terms of education, know how things are coming together. So we have the ground level landscape, we have the secondary landscape and how that creates space, and then we have the buildings. And that's just a very simple animation of how things can build up. But you can see how you have to understand urban planning, urban environments in order to do this. And you also have to understand the basis of sketching. Like you want to not exactly match from the computer what you see here graphically, but you want to have at least some softness to it that you can then focus on the right information that the graphics is trying to tell you. Now, we also found ways of using digital tools to store data inside a graphic that's more like a sketch. And so again, trace markers on trace, we were able to use AutoCAD to store data about these individual components in a way that allowed us to export a spreadsheet that gave us all of the information. And so this was conceptual design. This was not schematic or design development, which is the last phases of a design, but a conceptual plan that works. Because we always say that your sketches, when they're hand-drawn, so we can go back to this, they should always be to scale, right? And that's the difference between an urban planner and several other professions, is that, and that's not to say that architects and landscape architects don't draw to scale. Of course they do. But in terms of the sketchbook, even there, we have our site plans are always to scale, so that when we get to this level, applying it to the computer and trying to allow the computer to help us with the sketch and enhance it, we can get more out of it. So the axonometric is another type of drawing that we tend to work on, and most of us don't even realize it because we use the word perspective, or we use isometric, axiometric. We have so many different terms on this that it's a little bit nauseating and disturbing, because by now we should have all the same nomenclature about these things. So taking this two-dimensional drawing, hand sketched to scale, and being able to convert that into something that's three-dimensional, so that you can then make more decisions about the plan and how it comes together. That's what this is about. Again, it enhances our ability to sketch, because in SketchUp, you can use that digital tool to enhance the line typology that looks now similar to what you would have drawn by hand. So it has a capability of taking its computer lines and converting those into a sketch line, keeping your texture, color, and it adds shadows, which is sometimes not easy. And if you start to fake it, now before computers, we were able to fake the shadow. We would draw shadows on the two-dimensional plans and three-dimensional axonometrics, but now it's like an instant thing. So it's helping us, and that's a good thing, right? That the model and the sketch now work hand in hand. It's a continuous, very, very beautiful drawing that you could also show your boss, or even someone else on your team, like your client. And so you see now you can make all kinds of decisions just by rotating and going around that model and making new decisions on how to complete the site plan. So it's a good work in progress sketch that uses three-dimensional modeling. Now, some of you might have seen this earlier today in Tony's presentation. This was something that he and I worked together on in Camden, New Jersey. And what was nice about this model is that it's not the crude graphics from SketchUp, it's the fact that we have the existing area around us in a very clear view. So, to take a base drawing, an axonometric again from the city, and putting an iconic building in front of the audience so that they can see where they are, was key to making it work. And some of the features, like the light rail going through Camden's Walter Rand Center, was also a feature that people were locked into. So they were oriented, they knew where they were, and they were able to see the transformation of this place and not be distracted by the crude graphics. And that's not to say these graphics could be, it couldn't have been better. Of course they could, and we should have done a better job at making those a little bit looser, because one of the things you don't want people to understand is that there's no room for change. That's one of the things that we learned over the last 30 years as we were using digital models. Now, I have to put this in here because when you build a model, a physical model is much more successful when you're talking to an audience. The problem is that not everyone could be around it at the same time. The problem with the digital model is that you're looking at what you're looking at. You're looking at just the screen, this rectangle that has information in it without peripheral vision on it. So you can't instantly move your eye and the view moves with it. And that's the problem. So there may be a chance where one day we will be able to do this a little bit faster and better through virtual reality goggles, but that's also has its limitations. But definitely the physical model is always the best one to use in a setting like community engagement. So perspectives, we look at perspectives, and we have to also talk about photography, because again, one of the things that we make as urban planners is a set of photographs. We make models, we make sketches. All of these things are tools to help us visualize and communicate. And so now we have the digital tool like Photoshop, who can easily enhance a photograph like the one on the left and make it look like a watercolored sketch. And those instant transformations can be enhanced through hand sketchings of our own. So the backdrop area right in here is all computer generated, while the sketches that you see under here within the porch and in front of you in the grass have been hand sketched over. And maybe I think right in here, these little pieces right in there, the rest of it is computer generated. And so if you look at the complement here, you don't have to draw much, you don't have to sketch much to make this appear to be an idea and not a real environment. So you can use that in your visualization. When you talk to lay people, they can easily react to this rather than an actual environment. Because one of the things that people really don't like is when you show an environment or a place of a real city somewhere, and they feel like you're comparing them to another city, especially a local city that they may be competing with. But the immediate question when you show a photograph of a place is, are we at the same level of income, the same mix? What are the similarities? And then you're opening yourself up for more questions that you can't answer, or maybe you didn't think of it yourself. So a sketch really goes a long way to remove that bias from the lay people who might ask these hard to answer questions. In elevation form, this is not a perspective, but the same sketching combined with Photoshop can apply. And as you can see, the sketching practice is what really helps you understand how well a sketch should look when you are looking at it through a computer program. You got to make the effort to push it to this level and find ways of doing it quickly. That's the other key. Perspectives, if you know the rules of perspective, you'll find that sketching over a photograph to come up with ideas is something that really will enhance your abilities to become a better urban designer. And if you follow those same principles of perspective, you can easily put together, using a photo montage, pieces of the environment in a perspective. In this case, we use the 1-point perspective, the rules of 1-point perspective to create this environment right here. And a lot of people say, well, we can easily do something in Lumion or some other program that instantly puts all of this together. And it's true, but putting this together with a little bit more work really helped us understand how these environments came together, and it made us better urban planners, because there were decisions that had to be made as we were putting this together. For example, and I don't have the other in progress simulation, but the one before had the railroad ties going across. And so are we talking about heavy rail, which is, very dominant here in Nashville, or are we looking at some light rail? And so we were going back and forth, changing those things around, talking to the client. But all of that has to do with decisions that come from people on your team, not just you. And so that interaction, the more you do rather than the more the program does, the more interaction you will have with other professionals to keep you sharp, to keep you learning and understanding. Because a lot of the design decisions we made were based also on financing. And how many of you learn financing on your own? That's something you can learn a program on your own, but you can't learn financing on your own. You have to work with others to do that. And this was an important exercise in that. If you apply your the other knowledge of 2-point perspective, you could also apply that to something like a visual simulation. Again, using photography skills, understanding where the midpoint is, vanishing points. You take the key photos that has all of the elements that you want to talk about. And that's also part of marketing. But if you look at the bottom, you can think about how the evolution of the drawing becomes part of a planning and urban design process. So if we break it simply down into project initiation, analysis, design, and implementation, you can start to almost schedule in a visual that will evolve over time using Sketch. And so Sketchup has a really amazing ability to take a photo and you can match a 3D model within that perspective. If you, again, knowing how perspectives work and what are the 1 and 2 point vanishing points. So what you see here is not Photoshop. This is actually SketchUp. And now you have, this was done intentionally so you can see the 3D model crude on top of the actual perspective and how we've narrowed the roads, widened the sidewalks. And again, this interaction of decision making while we were putting this together was the key to becoming a better urban designer, because we were able to work with the local architect, engineer, and developer on this project. And we were able to make real good decisions about where do we put rain gardens, crossing, and all of these other things. How's the architecture going to evolve? Is it going to be redeveloped, knocked down? We made full assessments. We came up with, the reality of the transformation of this place, where we're going to keep the buildings and enhance those. And we showed how they are. If you look at the transformation, it is exact to the T, even the brick sizes and the mortar. That transformation is perfect. Then you can play with alternatives on what happens over time. When does certain areas get improved, and when do others come into the timeline? And so now we could think about bulk and height. And do we do that? Do we do this? But we definitely need a parking deck in the back. What is it going to look like? How is it going to feel? And all of that comes from the ability to sketch. So quickly, in a nutshell, at Bloustein, what we've done is we've spread out the learning of urban planning and design through several classes, and they're all based on this ability to sketch out your ideas before putting them into the computer. Let the computer enhance your knowledge and expand your capabilities, but don't let it be a limitation by accepting it for what it is. So by starting with the sketch and understanding what that's going to be, how that's going to help you, it's going to make you a better operator / narrator when it comes to urban planning and design. And so here's some of the student projects that they've incorporated into the more advanced graphical communication programs like Rhino, Maxwell Studio, and now we're using V-Ray to come up with these environments. But these environments, it didn't just pop into their heads. They were sketched before they were put out there. And you can see how some of those photorealistic drawings can become watercolors through using those in other programs. So the whole idea of the digital tools, you will be successful if you can use digital tools within a planning process that's enhanced by sketching, and that your thought process is driven by the sketch, not by the computer program and what it can do. It's not, and a lot of the students do fall into that, sadly. So if you think about traditional drawing and digital, there is such a thing as tradigital, is this combined skill set. If you can use the digital to give you better information, use it. If you can use the digital to enhance your drawing capabilities, use it. But don't try to find that program that will just make do everything for you, because it's not out there. And I don't think it'll ever be out there, to be quite honest. So the planning and design process, again, it's something that you should think about from beginning to end as a way of helping you and your team become better thinkers. Thank you very much, everybody. Now let's see if we can start to practice on one of these 3D models that I gave you. Any questions or any thoughts? So Jasmine, are you guys gave everyone a copy of the SketchUp file?
Yeah, so I sent everyone yesterday a copy of the SketchUp file. I can send it again. I'm gonna send it in the link now, the link to online SketchUp, which is free. You just have to sign up with an account if you do want to participate in extruding the 3D model. And then I'll send the Google Drive link, which also has the SketchUp file. But what we can do as well, if you guys rather do that later, we can take some screenshots of the images and we can also sketch on top of the 3D model as well. And then we'll put that in our Miro board, and I can share that link as well.
And in the meantime, if you guys have any questions or if you wanted to discuss anything in particular, go ahead and throw out your questions.
So if you wanted to create the 3D model, I sent the files in that Google Drive link that I sent. But Johnny, were you able to extrude some of those buildings and take screenshots, and we can add it to the Miro board and people can sketch over that as well if they want to play with SketchUp a bit later?
The one that's there is better than the one that I'm working on. Mine looks still like, I'm still working on it. So.
Okay. Professor Ayala, would you want to take some screenshots of that so we can put that in the Miro board so we can get sketching on it a bit sooner?
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah, let me do that.
Unless we want to go through showing them how to extrude it first as
I'm in
well.
the process of doing that. I don't know if you want me to try to go over what I'm doing.
This one may have more than the one I provided, and that's intentional because, where did this go? I wanted everyone to, sorry, I lost the snip. And the one that I gave you guys, I wanted you guys to practice, extruding and learning how to do the actual surfaces on SketchUp. How many of you know SketchUp? You can use your virtual hands or whatever.
I was able to get a screenshot of it. I'm just putting it in here for people that might not have been able to sign up in advance. I'm putting the screenshot in the Miro board now.
Oh, sorry, I still can't find that snip, but
Okay, I was able to get a snip of it. I can share my
Okay.
screen of the Miro board if everyone wants to go off that sketch. We did share the file with you though, so if you do want to try extruding some blocks in SketchUp, you're more than welcome to do that. Professor Ayala, can you stop sharing so I could share the Miro board?
yes.
So if you guys are in here, we can look at this and sketch this by hand in our sketchbooks, or if you have a tablet, you can save this image and draw over it in Procreate or something like Morpholio Trace, and see what other buildings you come up with adding within this image. And also items like vegetation and trees and things like that. Is there anything else, Professor Ayala, you'd add that we'd want them to sketch out, and then we can review it within
Yeah,
like
they could also add buildings where you see footprints, either behind the ones that are on the far, well, actually on the top over there, and the ones that are closer up to you. Those they can add more. And if they wanted to, make a few buildings taller, some shorter, they could also sketch over that as well.
That's great. If you guys wanted to sketch right in here, you can. And on the Miro board, there's a tab right here where you can hit the pen tool. And then you can actually just draw right over it. You might just want to make the line a bit thicker, or if the line comes up pretty small, what you can just do is make the image a bit smaller. I can do that. So if you guys copy and paste it, you might want it to be a bit smaller, and you just zoom in. And then when you go to draw, the line should be a bit thicker now. See how it comes out, and you can do it this way as well. But I'll keep the screen on here if you wanted to sketch this into your sketchbook. And if you take a picture of it, you can upload it using this button here as well. And anyone let me know if you're having trouble getting into the Miro board or anything else. So we'll take about 10 minutes to sketch now. I'll start the timer, and then we'll review if people can upload their drawings to the board. And if you have questions in the meantime, please feel free to ask. Okay, let's see. Was anyone able to get something in here? Justin, is this yours? I can't hear you, Justin, if you're talking. Your mic kind of went out. Go. Smaller. Anyone finish that they wanna, I'm trying to look around and see which ones are done. It's hard to follow everyone's here. Oh, this is cool. Did someone put this in here?
Oh, that's me.
Johnny, you wanna talk about what you did?
I raced through extruding every surface as quickly as possible.
It looks good.
And then I added shadows. And then in the last one, I used one of those different scenes so that it was like kind of a sketchy, I'm sorry, not a scene, a style.
Style,
So
yeah.
it looks sketchy.
Nice. Looks good.
That was really quick, Johnny. That was really good.
Yeah, I have had too much practice in SketchUp. I'll drop in what I've been working on too.
See, from there, you could take it to Photoshop and add more of the filter effects to make it sketchier if you wanted to, or you know,
Right.
people could also export, print it and draw over it by hand, which is also pretty interesting. Or you can give it to your boss, supervisor, colleague, and you could all sketch over it and keep the conversation going with those kinds of sketches.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, for one of my studios, I made a model of the site that we're working on. And once I did the buildings, I added some details to buildings that were important to the site. And then Julio's working on this with me. And then I'm just going to be tracing over in Morpholio Trace, like what the site could actually look like, rather than designing it in SketchUp, but using really SketchUp as the base. So everything's to scale, and then pulling it into software and actually drawing in these other pieces. And the cool thing about that is you can send it to anyone and they can, as Juan said, kind of do it. So it's been cool. I'm excited. It's always nice to draw. Extruding models all day is a little bit.
Yeah, it's an easier conversation to have something like what you put together with the sketchiness on it than if you had just a hard line, the one that I showed up on the screen earlier, the one that we took a snapshot of. So the objective would be to take what we gave you a snapshot of, which is a typical graphic that comes out of SketchUp. Actually, it's not typical, it's a little bit more enhanced, and to make it feel a little bit better to talk about what it's actually doing.
I see yours in there, Alex. I'm trying to see if I can't find, unless people's things went in really small. I can zoom in on mine. Quickly. So what I pretty much did was like looking at where pedestrians can flow and what their paths would be. So I made cut through in the existing buildings that were extruded and showed where those paths could kind of end up and where they could lead to. And then also looking at views from different points of the building, if there were balconies, and extruded the building up a bit more, but also set it back from the street. So then these views can look onto this park with a couple more pedestrian paths in through the green space, and some green roofs. Just by sketching over it. I use Procreate for this. If anyone has an iPad and likes to sketch in there.
How easy would it be to make shadows on that program?
Well, it's basically like digital art app. So it's all drawing, it's all hand drawing. So for shadows, you would draw them in like by hand yourself, like with the pencil, the Apple Pencil. It's not hard. I can add the shadows. I just was trying to do it fast.
Yeah, I'm wondering with Procreate, I haven't used it. If you see those nice thick green arrows, if you think about using it like a marker, you almost dab in color like you would if you were to, like I said, use a marker in real life. And that would require you to know how to do shadow patterns. So this is a true axonometric, by the way, for all of you who are looking at what she's drawing there. So every line that you see there is equal to the one in the far back, right? So there's no perspective on this. so, you know, like this line right here is equal to that one there, and it's equal here and here. So you can easily, how you say it, you can easily make some additional buildings in here just by knowing that. Like you can scale and you can start dimensioning in other wings and things like that. But again, like we talked about before, using your knowledge about axonometric perspective and orthographic projections to make those feel sketchy, because those are drawings that came from engineers, and those drawings are crucial, those 3 different types, because they allow us to make measurements and assemble things together just like engineers do. But we're using it in an urban environment, and to soften it up a little bit so they don't look like engineered parts. We want to, you know, give it a squiggled line like the one that, you know, Jasmine was putting in there in this sketch, and the one that Johnny, you put in your sketch too. Just kind of soften it up a little bit more. Good work, guys. Anything else?
I don't know. I'm trying to find other people's. Eric, what did you get done? Is this yours, Eric? In here?
No, there you go.
Yeah, I'm really rusty with SketchUp, but I just started messing around with it. I'm uploading a screenshot right now also.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, I
Okay.
tried using Miro to
I had a
draw.
scribbly one in there too.
It was pretty tough.
Is it this one, Paul, or?
No, no.
Trying to find them. They
thought I-
kind of go everywhere.
Oh, that was mine.
That little
But,
tiny one, maybe that little tiny one.
Little,
Which one?
this one?
Oh, I didn't get far on that one.
Try that one. There you
No,
go.
that's not me. That's not me.
That's me. That was me. That was me.
You, okay.
That's-
Let me see. Oh, we had the same idea for this donut building.
Yeah, yeah. I was just using my mouse though, so it's harder.
Okay.
to do.
Right, yeah.
But then, so if I just use that tool and use the straight line with the arrow, that would have been straight lines instead of using the pen.
Right. This here, yeah.
Well, if you
Okay.
use the pen, I found out that there is something that's called Smart Pen. It'll draw a straight line for you, even if
Yeah,
you're
that was the other thing.
Wiggly.
The other, what was the other one? That guy. Yeah.
This-
Yeah, if you circle that, if you click on that, it'll make your lines straight.
Okay.
But it was tough to learn that Miro. It has some good advantages to it. So Jasmine, I could, if you wanted to, if there's no other drawings, I could show SketchUp and how to make it look sketchier
Mhm.
live. Just, you know, a few commands, nothing fancy.
Yeah, is it, Eric, did you put this in? Is it the model?
Yeah, once I remembered how to push and pull, I did that. in a couple of
That came out good. That was pretty quick too. And so you could hit the side walls with white, like all these these patterns that show up, because they get stretched out from the actual drawing. They just come up, and you can clean those up by adding, with the paint bucket, just add some white on there. And then under styles, you can make that line sketchy again.
Yeah, if anyone here is interested, we can definitely do a quick SketchUp tutorial. If you guys wanted to load those in here later and look at it, we could do that too if everyone here is wanting that to happen.
Okay.
Yeah. I can stop sharing now. There we go.
All right. Just real quick, for those of you who are interested in knowing how to make these sketchy lines, once you've extruded everything, and you can see that you could even extrude the entire city block, and you have the ability to click on any of these. Those were created by just simply drawing lines over this. Now, I'm not going to show exactly how to, I don't think we have enough time, how to bring this in, but this is a texture map surface where the computer mapped the drawing that I made when I scanned it in and brought it into the computer, and it mapped it onto a surface. So it allows me now to draw over it and separate out pieces of my drawing. And now I can take the push-pull and extrude that upward. And what's nice is it keeps the pattern on the top correct. And you can see the other pattern is starting to creep up on the edges, and that's okay. We can take and just simply add, sorry, we can add from the paint bucket, we can just add color to that. And if you get the gray, you want the white, you just simply select the surfaces and reverse the faces on those. Now, the nice thing about this study, of course, you can add you turn on the shadows so you can see what you're looking at, and you can manipulate the shadows if you wanted to, which is great. But again, the other advantage of doing this is that you can now go to your styles, which is this panel right in here. You can go down to sketchy edges, and then from there, choose pencil. And now any of these styles that you put onto your model, you have the ability to edit. You see this tab right here, there's edit and mix, select, edit, and mix. So if you click on the middle one, they've changed this around, by the way, from the previous version. The style down in here shows you that you're on this one called hidden lines, which is all white, and you don't see the lines behind it. This is wireframe right there. And then this one over here, this one will allow the edges that create the 3D model to stay, and then everything else to go back to the original drawing, which is there. You see that nice click there? And what you see now is that the lines that are typically computer generated sharp lines are now much sketchier. And that makes a big difference. Now, you can export this as a JPEG in whatever angle you want. You could even go down into the site using the position camera, and you can start to look around and see what the environment looks like on the ground, and it stays sketchy, which is really good. So if I added lights and trees, if I colored in my street, you'll be able to see that. And I could even, push pull while I'm in the environment. So you can see I can lift up the center green space, which I have highlighted, 6 inches above the ground, and see what it feels like to have to be within that street, right? And you can immediately get a spatial configuration of that. So, just quick things that you can do to your model and not spend a lot of time in CAD, so that you can get a quick decision or a quick conversation with someone on your team or someone that is part of the decision-making process. Because what I found was, first I found this out before I started teaching. The young professionals that would come into the office, and they had a great energy. They worked really hard, but the bad part was that they sometimes went off on a tangent, aside from the instructions I give them, or someone else. And by the time you catch them, they're too far out there with these wild ideas. And what happens then is that they have to go back and change it. Well, a lot of them took this step and made it, photorealistic. They had all these details. They had buildings that were up with windows and doors. And to try to get them to erase all that was like asking the guy to commit murder. And they just wouldn't want to do it because they've committed so much time. And psychologically, you convince yourself that's a good design, but it really isn't. And that's the danger of going too far too soon. You got to keep yourself in the sketch mode until you resolve it. Then go to the program that you need to make that design complete. And that's why it's important to have a process. And when you go out into the real world, you have to establish that relationship first before you get serious about making changes on a project or working on a project. You got to know how people work. And if you can suggest something like this, I think they'll like you more than if you see them kind of struggling with this process that doesn't quite work. All right, so that's what I wanted to show you, that digital tools are good, but you got to be careful how you use them and how you apply them into the design process, specifically urban design.
So Juan, you bring it in, what's the same again? It's texture? You're bringing it in as a texture?
Yeah, I mean, I could quickly show you if you guys want to. It's just simply making a box,
Right.
surface. And then when you go to File, Import, I'll select any of these just so I don't waste time. Let me select this one. You see down here under the options, image,
Okay, cool.
texture, new map. Yeah, just click there, hit import. But now you have to drop it in and then stretch it out into that surface as
So it's sitting on that surface.
it's sitting on the surface. But here's the funny thing is that it's not to scale until you make it to scale. So
Okay.
the way to scale an object or a plan
Yeah.
is that you have to use the measuring tape, find a building that you know dimension of.
And scale it.
All right, yeah, you know this part?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Oh, okay, never mind then.
That's good. That's good.
Okay, cool. Yeah, because now I could draw over this sketchy thing and it'll come out really well. SketchUp is better at making these rectangles now. You see that pink line that showed up to give it perpendicular. But I love the fact that it makes these sketchy edges instead of that hard line. It just makes a total difference. All right, so should I take questions or are we good for today?
Yeah, does anyone have any more questions, whether relating to SketchUp, Sketchbook, or any digital tools or hand drawing techniques, or anything about EJB Designs?
I have one question, sorry. So like I haven't really developed my sketching skills very much, but oftentimes I find myself whenever I do, I go to gridded paper as opposed to just no rule paper on blank paper. Do you consider that to be a crutch? And yeah,
I'm glad you
do you
brought that
consider
up. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, that was it.
Oh, okay, I'm glad you brought it up because I was talking to Jasmine about this the other day. We need to bring back the grid paper because the problem here is that you zoom in and out and you don't have a reference to scale unless you have a three-dimensional object or you know the dimension of this thing. But if you're starting off from scratch and you have an empty screen, then yes, of course, you should have a grid in here, and they're fairly easy to make in AutoCAD using the array button, the array command. I'm developing them right now. Actually, I made only one so far, but that's something that I wanted to equip all of the professors with at Rutgers so they can distribute it to you guys. But to have a 1 to 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, and 60, and of course you can convert that to 100, 200, 400, whatever. And to put those in, you can put those in Sketchbook Pro, which is the hand drawing program. You can put them in here into SketchUp, which is also very nice. So the Sketchbook Pro allows you, if you guys are not familiar, that's a sketching program that's freehand, and that's a good place to put it. Now in InDesign, I also found this out, which is pretty cool, but we need to work on it. If you guys have a quick minute, you can set a grid in the back of your drawing of your screen to be at 1 to 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, whatever it is, fairly easily too. It's not like it's hard to do. The only bad part is that you cannot export it. That's the only thing that I found difficult. But it's under preferences. And if you go to units and increments, oh wait, let me just make sure. No, it's under either grids or grids and grids, I think it is. Yeah, see here, your horizontal and your vertical, right? If you change that to 10, then you got a 1 to 10 or 1 to 100, right? And then when you hit OK, so it's going to be in light gray. You can control the colors and all of that stuff. And you do that, and then you go to view, and then you can say to show the grid. I think it's I keep forgetting which one it is. There it is. That's the grid paper you were talking about. And if you had a way of sketching on it, this would be an excellent way of using that. But yes, bring back the grid. We need it because you could zoom in and out of this page and still have a reference to each one of those squares being a 1 by 1 or 10 by 10, right? 100 by 100, whatever the case may be. I could bring in an aerial at 1 to 100 and put it there, and that grid will be on top of it. And I could start to sketch. If the area is at 1 to 100, the grid is at 1 to 100, then you can easily create, 10-foot by 10-foot buildings or cabanas, or if you want to call it that, or rooms. So yeah, it's a great idea. Any other questions? And any other questions or pieces of discussion that anybody wants to talk about? All right, I think we're good, Jasmine.
Sounds great. Thank you everyone for joining us today. The Miro board link that I shared, you'll have access to that forever. So if you want to go in and edit anything or continue to add to see any more sketches or from our previous sessions, if you want to work on those drawing exercises, you're more than welcome to do so. We're going to be posting this to YouTube later in the month. So if you missed the first 2 sessions, you'll receive the recordings for those as well. And if you have any other questions, feel free to message any of us or email draw at ejbdesigns@gmail.com. And I think that's it. So thank you all for joining us. We're happy to see your faces virtually and see your sketches as well.
Take care, guys.
Thank you.
Good to see you all.
Great.
Thanks,
Take care.
Jasmine.
Take care. Thank you for coming.